guys, welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, welcome. My name is Mazzy and today I'm going to be sharing my gastroparesis story. Gastroparesis story starts at the end of 2018 when I was experiencing some really uncomfortable GI symptoms, but we didn't know what the issue was, and it was not uncommon for me to have GI issues because I am post-transplant, so I've had a bunch of random GI issues throughout my life. Once my doctors had performed the battery of standard tests they would normally perform and couldn't find any reason for my issues, they decided to look further into it, and that happened in February of 2019. At that appointment, my doctor scheduled an endoscopy and colonoscopy so that they could get a look inside to see if there was anything visible that was wrong that they could fix. Those scopes happened in May of 2019, and they showed mild inflammation of unknown cause. They told me at that appointment it was not Crohn's disease because there was no chronic inflammation, only active inflammation, and that there was a possibility it could be Crohn's in the future, but that it would require chronic and active inflammation. During the first week of August in 2019, I started going downhill very, very quickly. I was signed up to go to a summer camp that week, and a couple days before, I requested an urgent appointment with my doctor because my symptoms were so out of control. At the summer camp, I was feeling very, very full after having like 5 noodles or something like that, and my diet was almost non-existent. My nurse practitioner from my hepatology team had actually been volunteering that week, and so she got to see firsthand what my symptoms were and how I was experiencing them and how much they were affecting my daily life. I took a trip to the on-campus medical facility at least once a day while I was there, and I was there for 5 days. While I was at that camp and my nurse practitioner was there and she saw my symptoms, she said, "Hey, maybe you have a motility disorder. When we get back to San Diego," because we were in the Los Angeles area, "when we get back to San Diego, I think it might be a good idea to order a gastric emptying study." That never happened. Or it did, but it took a very, very long time for it to happen. When I got back from camp, I was referred to an IBD specialist, and I saw her on August 15th of 2019. She agreed that my inflammation in my colon did not align with Crohn's disease because, once again, I did not have the chronic inflammation, but she did see the active inflammation. And at the appointment, the follow-up appointment, from my scopes, my doctor put me on low-dose IBD medication just to see if it would work. When I got to the IBD specialist, she upped those doses because she wanted to make sure that raising the dose wasn't going to make a difference and find out if I needed a stronger medication or a stronger dose. She also ordered a second round of scopes, and those were performed on August 28th. I had a colonoscopy and endoscopy, and they placed a capsule endoscopy, and so that is where first they did an MRI to make sure that there were no obstructions of any kind, and then I had to swallow a pill that had a camera on the inside, and it took pictures of my gut as it went down, and it could see my small intestine, and that's kind of the main part that you want to get in when looking for a Crohn's diagnosis, because Crohn's is characterized by patchy inflammation throughout the whole digestive tract, pretty much. So just looking at the colon with a colonoscopy was not helpful for us, and since I am a tall person, I was not able to get any results for my small intestine because the scope wasn't long enough. So the capsule endoscopy gave my doctors the opportunity to see what was going on in my small intestine. During this time, my weight continued to drop significantly, and I was put on a dietary supplement called Kate Farms. I would highly recommend Kate Farms if you are looking for a dietary supplement. There's superfoods in it. It's so good for you. It's like blended up real food, pretty much. It's like a smoothie. It's the best one best tasting one that I found, and it made me feel like I had a sense of control of what I was putting in my body, even though I didn't have very much control at the time. It's free of dairy, gluten, soy, corn, so many things. Like, it's such an allergy-friendly food. The capsule endoscopy showed inflammation in my small intestine, and I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease on September 25th. This threw us off the gastroparesis trail for a very, very long time, and looking back, I think that my symptoms aligned more with gastroparesis, and that we just happened to find the Crohn's disease while we were finding the gastroparesis diagnosis. I was continuing to lose weight, and once I got the Crohn's disease diagnosis and we knew that I had inflammatory bowel disease, my doctor decided it was in my best interest to come off the medications that I had been on before and to start me on a more powerful IBD medication. So I was started on Entyvio infusions on October 3rd of 2019. Symptoms didn't get much better, and I was really just told to wait and wait and wait because they were gonna get better. They kept telling me that my symptoms were gonna get better, and I just never saw that happen. But a second round of scopes were performed at the very beginning of January 2020, and they showed that I was in histological remission, meaning that there were no ulcers and meaning that my Crohn's was in remission. I continued to not see any results, any positive results from the medication, even though it showed that the inflammation was gone. And so it got to the point where all ingestion that I was trying was so painful and so awful. I was so nauseous and so full after eating not very much food. I was eating toddler-sized meals, and I wasn't eating 3 times a day. It was just a really bad time. Seeing my symptoms continue to worsen and my weight continue to drop was not a good sign. I was not really able to tolerate my Kate Farms at this point. I mean, I was forcing myself to drink it, but some days all I would drink was 1 Kate Farms, and that's not enough. The ones that I had were like 325 calories, and you can't live off of that. So my IBD specialist, brought a gastric emptying study back into the conversation, and it was approved in March 2020. We encountered a ton of issues in getting a location and time set for my gastric emptying study, and then COVID hit, and I was not able to get it at all because everyone was housebound. Things continued to wax and wane. I would see some improvement and then see drastic drops, and it was like a roller coaster. And then we got an appointment set for August 4th, I think, but at that point it was only like June or something like that, so it was way too far out, and I was not sure if I was gonna be able to make it that long. I was getting to the point where my health was in such a bad place that my doctor wanted to start a medication, a prokinetic, meaning it stimulates gut movement, called erythromycin, on July 7th, 2020. My doctor just decided that she didn't care what the gastric emptying study said. She was pretty sure I had gastroparesis, and she just needed to see some improvement because I was going downhill so quickly. I was waiting for insurance to approve the medication when I was admitted to the hospital. On July 13th, 2020, I was admitted to the hospital for dehydration and malnutrition, both of which were severe. When I was first admitted, they gave me a bolus of saline, and I assumed that that was all they were going to do and send me home. That's not all they did. They gave me a bolus and saw no improvement. I felt no improvement, and they decided to admit me, give me more boluses. I was on continuous IVs until I think 3 or 4 days before I was discharged because I was not tolerating water. I could not drink water. I was not tolerating food, and I was just in a very, very bad position. The doctors went through the normal tests that my doctors had performed the year before when they first started seeing symptoms, and they couldn't find anything. And so like the 3rd day that I was there, the doctor came in and told us that there was nothing else they could do for me, and I had only been there for 3 days, and it was very, very defeating. They decided to do another round of scopes, knowing my history with Crohn's disease, and since I could not tolerate liquid at that point, they put a NG tube down, meaning it's similar to this one, except it goes straight to the stomach, and this tube goes straight to the jejunum, which is a part of the small intestine. When they placed the NG tube, I was still experiencing the same symptoms, but I was able to tolerate a bit better because it was less of a shock to my system when fluid was being introduced at a lower rate over a longer period of time. The doctor that was on my case said that there was a possibility that they could get a gastric emptying study performed, but they weren't sure if I was going to be there long enough to get it done because they didn't have some of the supplies in stock. They said if I was still there on Saturday that they would let me take the test, and if not, then I would have to wait until my August 4th appointment. Nothing had been done to help me, and I was still not able to drink water on my own, so I was there for quite a bit longer, meaning I was there on the Saturday that they wanted to perform the test. I got cleaned out most of the part by Saturday, and then I took the test, so I had to eat, which the test was very, very horrible for me, and leaving the test, my radiologist had told me, I think you're going to get the results that you're looking for from this test just based on what I'm seeing, but I'm not the doctor, so I'm going to wait for your doctor to give you results. So I had the gastric emptying study performed on Saturday, and then Sunday I went in for scopes after them pumping me with as much go lightly as they could that night. When I went in the morning, my doctor came into the waiting hub or whatever you want to call it before going back to the OR, and she said, you have gastroparesis. There's no doubt, it's definitely there. We can see it on your results. She diagnosed me with moderate gastroparesis, and she said it explains all of my symptoms, but she still wanted to perform the scopes, and so that's what they did. Performing the scopes showed nothing remarkable. Since they had the gastroparesis diagnosis, they started me on more prokinetics. They were able to start me on the erythromycin while I was there, and I found no improvement with that. I tried bolus feeds because sometimes bolus feeds can be better for the anatomy of a person, and that was so awful, so it did not work. And then they wanted to evaluate me for an eating disorder even though they had the gastroparesis diagnosis. That happened after the week ended. I got a new doctor, and even though I had the diagnosis on record, I guess they didn't believe it or something, because they sent people from the medical behavioral unit. They sent some of those therapists down to my room and wanted to evaluate me for an eating disorder, and that was very defeating, and I cried, and it was not pretty, but they were the ones who ultimately pushed for me to get an NG tube, which is the tube that I have now. Gastroparesis is gastro means stomach, paresis means paralysis. Put it together, it's stomach paralysis. So part of my stomach is paralyzed. This tube goes past my pylorus, which is the sphincter at the end of your stomach, which holds food into it. And so, since part of mine is paralyzed, mine doesn't open very, very well, and when it does, it's few and far between. So this tube goes past my pylorus into my small intestine and feeds me directly into that area of my body, so that my system can still get nutrition, but it's not going into the affected area. I forgot to mention that I also tried Reglan, and I got tardive dyskinesia with that medication, so it was not an option for me anymore. With the NG tube, I was only able to tolerate a shot glass of formula an hour, and I was in too much pain for them to bump it up any higher. With the NG tube, I was able to get up to my goal rate within 4 hours of them starting me on those feeds, and it was like a miracle. It was like night and day, and I was out of the hospital a day and a half after they placed it. I was in the hospital for a total of 18 days for that admission, and ultimately that's what it took for us to get the diagnosis, and this is gastroparesis. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section below. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!